Yo, what's up, bro? What you need?
Bro, I need a helmet, yo.
Sweet, what color you want?
Bro, a sick yellow.
Sweet, here's a yellow one. Hey everybody, it's Sean from Moto BS. And was that scenario familiar to you? I personally have been in places where I said, hey, I'm looking for a new helmet, and they've literally just pointed at the wall and said, hey, take your pick. Helmets are much more than that, much more than just a color. You need to understand it, especially maybe if you're a new rider and you're looking to get in some new gear or maybe your first gear. Helmets are a little complex, and you don't have to go and know every little detail of how a helmet is made to make an educated choice, but it helps to know the basics of them. And maybe I can help break that down a little bit today. So, we're looking at the construction, we're looking at the aerodynamics and the usage of those aerodynamics for the style that you're riding. We're looking at sizing, and of course we'll look at price and how price comes into play across those different areas. Helmets are made with many different materials. The manufacturers are always looking to engineer a really safe and yet affordable, lightweight, comfortable helmet. And those prices can range anywhere from $100 all the way up to, a couple of thousand if you really want to get into premium helmets. And we'll talk about each one of those spectrums as we go through this. But one thing that comes into play with the helmet price is the materials that go into it. So you'll have basically like plastic shell versus a carbon fiber or a synthetic fiber weave that's using Kevlar and exotic materials to help make strong spots. One thing I want to mention is that, back in the old days in cars, they used to think that a really big, thick metal automobile was a safe automobile. And that's the same thing with helmets. A rock hard helmet was a safe helmet. And we're not thinking that way anymore. Now you want a little bit of a compression zone so that it's absorbing some energy in the event of an impact. Now it's a little different, of course, with a helmet than a car because you've only got an inch and a half or so to play with as opposed to a whole front end of a vehicle. So it gets a little bit more, scientific in terms of how they're able to keep it strong and yet also have it be a little bit flexible to absorb some energy. And they do that with multi-density liners. And like I said, with different multi-density layers and weaves that they're using. So those kind of things can add to the price of a helmet. Whereas a more simple plastic molded helmet with a simple single density layer liner, keeps the cost down, and they can mass produce it on an assembly line, and they can charge $150 for it. Will it be safe for you? That's the big question, right? So then you get into the area of safety certifications. So like you've probably heard of DOT, the Department of Transportation. You may have heard of SNELL, which is an organization that tests helmets for their impact, and they gather data and all of this great stuff. And then if it passes their tests, they put their name on it. So like a helmet like this Shoei and my Arai here are both SNELL rated helmets. And that gives the consumer a comfort level of, hey, it passed the SNELL test. It should be pretty good with me. Well, does that mean you should never buy a DOT only helmet? Not necessarily, and it really comes into budget, and it's important, especially for new riders, because let's be honest, what are you excited about when you're getting into the motorcycle world? You're excited about the motorcycle, right? Hey, I get it. And I've talked to so many new riders where you can just see the air come out of them, as they exhale in like, oh, oh my gosh, I got to spend all this extra money on gear. It can be a little disappointing if you're not planning for it, because you got to get that helmet. You got to get the jacket, the basics at least, right? Gloves, jacket, helmet, boots. And then you can go from there. Maybe you can get riding pants, get better level of armor and leathers, and sky's the limit. Okay, airbag systems, but you at least need to start with the basics, right? And to me, the most important, of course, is a helmet. So what else is there? So sizing is very important, because just like with any motorcycle gear, sizing is important. A loose helmet is not going to do you any good. That's the basic high level of that. So when you go in to talk with a sales representative, and I highly recommend buying a helmet in person somewhere, whether at a dealership or at a store like Cycle Gear, where you can go in and you can have somebody that is trained to help fit you with a helmet. It's very important, because if that helmet is too loose, then it's not going to perform its best. Maybe in an accident, it's actually going to come off your head, even if it's strapped. So you want to get that helmet sized correctly. Of course, it's got to fit on your head. The new riders always tell me, oh my gosh, for one, they get claustrophobic. Most people just aren't used to wearing a helmet. It's a weird, strange feeling for them. So my advice there is, take your time. When you go into a store, say you go into a Cycle Gear, be transparent and be right up front with the associate there and say, hey, look, I'm in here, I'm buying a helmet. I'm going to get my endorsement on my license, and they told me I had to bring a helmet to class. It's my first helmet. That way they know going in, right? And they're going to ask you some questions. They're going to ask you things like, what kind of motorcycle are you riding? And maybe you have a motorcycle, or maybe the motorcycle's coming in the future. Why does that matter? Well, that matters from an aerodynamic perspective, because every helmet is designed aerodynamically for a different type of riding position. So let me grab this bell here. This is a Bell Bullet, and it's kind of got a vintage retro look to it. It is designed for an upright position on a standard style motorcycle, okay? It's a very round, it doesn't have the big fairings in the back that you'll see on some that I'll show you in a second. This is meant for an upright position. That's going to be the best way for the air to flow over it to keep it from buffeting, okay? So when you turn your head in any helmet, you're going to get some kind of buffeting, because you're changing the way the air flows over it, and the air is going to grab onto different elements of the helmet and shake it around a little bit. So the manufacturer try to do their best in eliminating that, or at least minimizing it. By comparison, you can see, let me grab my Shoei here. This has a spoiler on the back, and this is meant for, now we're into a sport bike style, where it's meant to ride something like that, where you're leaned over on a sport bike, and they're designing this aerodynamically for the air to flow. Now, what happens with a helmet like this, though, is that when you turn your head to do a lane check or something, the air's grabbing these hard angles, and it's causing buffeting. That bothers some people not so much. It depends. One more. Let me grab the Arai here. Arai feels that a rounder design is the best aerodynamic, but this one also does have a small spoiler on here just to help stabilize it in higher speeds, just to give you a comparison. Okay, so knowing what style you're going to be riding is very important. That helps eliminate some things, right, for the sales associate to recommend to you. So if you go in there and say, I'm going to be riding a an MT-07, a standard naked bike, with more of an upright position to it, they're not going to be recommending really aggressive sport bike helmets that are meant to be ridden in a full tuck, okay? So that's something to keep in mind there, what style you'll be riding. So we've got construction, we've got, what do we talk about? The sizing, we've got some safety features there in terms of the certifications of Snell and DOT. There's also ECE, and that's the European version of the US DOT. A lot of people put a lot of weight into the ECE because it's a very comprehensive testing criteria, and a lot of people think it's more real world testing than like Snell, for example. But you can go down that rabbit hole. I'll let you that, and trust me, that is a rabbit hole. My personal opinion is I think any testing is great. You should know that DOT is on the honor system. Okay, so what that means is a manufacturer can create a helmet and put it out on the market. Well, if the government decides to do an audit on that helmet, or if a crash happens and the person, decides to do their own scientific analysis, and they find that that helmet didn't meet the DOT criteria for crash resistance, the manufacturers can end up getting some very hefty fines. They have to recall the helmets. They have to pay a bunch of fines. It can be very costly for them. So it's in their own interest not to do that. And a lot of people say, oh, DOT doesn't mean anything because it's on the honor system. Well, it really does, because these companies don't want to have to go through all of those financial payouts, So it's in their best interest financially to adhere to the DOT crash rating. So yeah, DOT, at least it sets a level for you to know, hey, this helmet's better than something I bought on some Facebook place that came from unknown country, right? You know what I'm saying there? So you have to be very careful, and also knowing the company. Like, I would trust a company that's more well-known versus an unknown company that says, oh yeah, ours is DOT, but you've never heard of it, right? So ask around, ask your friends, ask the salespeople, what's the reputation on this thing? What's the feedback on this company if you've never heard of them? They'll be honest with you, right? So the cost of $100 versus $1,000. The $1,000 helmets, they're typically handmade. Like this Arai was handmade by one person from beginning to end. This Shoei was handmade by 12 different people on an assembly line. And they're hand laying the fibers and the resins and all this kind of stuff. High end, super comfortable, high end materials in the liners. And the lesser helmets just don't go through that kind of process, right? They do more mass production, cost effective, simple ways in order to keep it affordable for people. I do want to mention that the liners in a helmet, okay, the interiors, these interiors come out, and they come out in pieces. The reason they do that is because, for one, it helps to clean them. Some helmets most helmets accept speakers, so you can pop out your cheek pads and put some speakers in there if you have a communication device. So you can take them out and you can clean them, but you can also, depending on the helmet, get different size, thickness of these things. So this is where I really wanted to focus in on sizing. If you're wearing a helmet at the store, you go in, the associate pulls a helmet down and he says, here, try this on. Take your time. Tell the associate the deal that you're here for. They'll work with you. Buying a helmet is not don't expect to come walking in and out in 5 minutes. Put the helmet on and literally walk around the store minimum 15 minutes. I'm serious. A good sales associate will recommend that. They'll tell you, hey, just take a few minutes and walk around and let it adjust. Keep it on your head. Pull the visor up, of course, so you can breathe better and walk around. Feel where the hot spots are. We call them hot spots. That could be here, right above your eyes at the temple. It could be here at the top of your forehead. It could be any different way, part of your head where these parts are pushing. You want a tight helmet, like I said before, because that's going to keep it on your head in the event of a crash. So you want to be able to, I don't want to say deal with any discomfort, but let me tell you this. You can get different replacement pieces. So if everything's good, if you've got this on your head for 15 minutes, but you are getting some pressure points, say, for example, you're getting some pressure points right here at your cheekbones, and it's just bugging you, even after 15 minutes. But everything else feels good. You like the helmet, you like the weight, you like the price, you like the way it looks, everything's cool. Ask the associate if you can get a different cheek pad thickness. The higher end helmets will have those. They say, oh yeah, we'll get you they have 4 different size cheek pads that we can get. We can try those. That's a great tip for you to really custom fit. Arai, they want you to custom fit your helmet. They don't want you to wear their helmet right out of the box. They recommend that you actually custom fit it by ordering different size pads that are in your helmet to make it feel the best that it can, but also be the tightest that it can. I will tell you that it took this Arai here, it took me a good 3 months of heavy riding before it finally started to break in. So helmets do break in. They'll get more comfortable. These liners and things will relax, and just give it some time. Trust me on that. I've seen so many people put a helmet on, say, nope, this one hurts, take it off, and that's it. They just completely discounted it. They're done with it. Please don't do that. Don't do that. Give it some time, and there are ways to fix it. There really are. Do not let your buddy take a razor knife and start cutting the polystyrene inside. That defeats the warranty and reduces the actual integrity of the helmet. So please do not do that. Look for different pads if it's uncomfortable. Also, another way that the manufacturers will keep the cost down is I'll hold this here to show you. They will have different size shells, okay? So they'll have, say you have an extra small, a small, a medium, a large, and an extra large. So there's 5 sizes. And there's others, but for now, for this example, 5 sizes. Some manufacturers may only have 2 shell sizes within that range of helmet. Think about it. So how are they doing that? Well, again, they're doing it with different liners, different thickness of the polystyrene inside, okay? So you could have an extra small that's the same as a medium on the outside, but inside they're fitting it to a smaller helmet. Whereas the upper end helmets are going to have more shell sizes available. So I would recommend looking for a helmet that has more variety of shell sizes per size, right? Preferably 1-to-1, although I don't know, that's into the higher end range there. So it depends on the price point that you want to pay. And be honest and look at your budget, because again, you need your boots, you need your gloves, you need your jacket, you need all this gear. I know getting the motorcycle is exciting and that's what it's all about, but this stuff keeps us safe, right? You want to keep safe and keep riding. A quick example of that is if you've watched the Moto BS podcast or listened to it, I wrecked at the track a couple of months ago. I went down, did a low side in a corner, 50 miles an hour, bam! I was wearing my track one-piece leathers, had my Arai helmet on, had gauntlet gloves, my tall boots. I didn't, popped right up. Nothing. It was like it was nothing. I mean, why? The gear. It's all about the gear, folks. You got to stay safe. Keep it safe, man. So yeah, I hope that helps a little bit, shed a little light. You can go down the rabbit hole of helmets and look into all the different aspects of the safety ratings and all the different aspects of how these things are built and constructed. There's a lot to it. But from a high level, I hope I kind of touched on all those bases a little bit and that helps you out. Just please don't go into a store and buy a helmet based on color, all right? So again, I'm Sean with Moto BS. Come back and check out the channel, like and subscribe. Stay safe and hope to see you again soon.